How's it going, everyone? James Lynch here with my co-host Adam Martin here for Spectation Sports. We're going to be previewing the Showcase MMA 19 card, which is going down this Saturday. That's right, I said that correctly. We did preview Showcase MMA 20, but with the numbering, this is Showcase MMA 19. This is going to be taking place at Thomas Creek Brewery in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. Adam, how's it going, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Yes, Showcase MMA, James. It's going to be right in Stephen Thompson territory. This is basically Wonder Boy's home base, and you do have a fighter that's a teammate of his, Johnweeney, in this card. I'm looking forward to this card, James. There's a couple good scraps here. Tanner Saraceno, we'll talk about him in a second. A very interesting guy, James. When I did the research on this guy, experienced fighter. So there's some good scraps in here, guys, and we're looking forward to talking about them. We don't have the odds yet. They probably drop on Friday, if I'm guessing. Action 24/7 in Tennessee, you'll be able to bet, but we'll talk about the fights anyways.
Yeah, really good card. There was a lot of hits, just like last time. We had the main event opponent fallout. Same thing happening this week. It was supposed to be George Shepard and Tanner Saraceno. Insert Zac Kelley, who's actually fought a lot of decent names on the regional scene as well. And we're going to start there. Tanner Saraceno right now, I'd imagine, is going to be the favorite here. He's got a winning record. His opponent, not so much, but that's going to be an interesting fight as well. Zac Kelley now stepping in on short notice. What can you say about this fight, Adam? Welterweight matchup in the main event.
Yeah, so I got to be honest, I didn't know a lot about either guy before I did the research into them. I know you interviewed Saraceno, so interesting guy, James. He actually was in the WWE for a while. He was with WWE Tough Enough, so He's a former professional wrestler, guys. He does come from a wrestling background as well. And he's a good grappler, James. Watching his fights, he's very good at getting the fight to the ground, and most of his wins are by submission. Here's the thing that's interesting about him. He's 7-5, right? In the record, it's not a good record, right? But look who he lost to, James. Sean Brady, who's in the UFC. Jared Gooden, who's in the UFC. Gregory Rodriguez, who's just got in the UFC, and Jonathan Webb, who used to be in the UFC, and he also has a win over Dom Waters, who used to be in the UFC as well. So this guy has a decent resume, man, and it's a better record than it actually is at 7-5. He's a highly touted fighter out of New Jersey, and I think the guy's solid. As far as his opponent here, let's be honest, we're going to call it what it is, James. It's a short-nosed replacement, and the guy's probably going to get finished in the first round. That's what I think happens here. It's no offense to Zac Kelley, just like the guy last week, Beaudry, that stepped in on short notice. You got to respect these guys, James, stepping in on a few days' notice, but it's a terrible matchup for this guy. Saraceno, man, he's got a legit ground game, James. I think he gets this guy to the ground, either gets a submission or pounds him out ground and pound. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of submission wins here for Tanner Saraceno, and I'm glad you brought up the losses because they're against tough guys, UFC caliber guys. Sean Brady has yet to lose a fight, so, that's not a bad first loss to have on the resume. Tanner's a guy that, I've interviewed for years. He's always been sort of on the cusp of the big show, coming off 2 straight losses. You know he's going to be hungry to get a win here, and a long layoff coming into the fight. Hasn't fought since July of 2019. I had the chance to speak to Tanner earlier today. You'll see that interview here on the channel, but he talked about the difficulty in getting fights and also just how much he's grown as a person. He talked about, mentally just not being there, maybe juggling a few too many things when it comes to his fight career. So he seemed really focused heading into this fight, despite the opponent switch up as well. The one thing I will say, and we talked about this last week in the main event, is that when you got a fighter like Zac Kelley, who, again, not the greatest record, but has a lot of experience and has nothing to lose, that can be a very dangerous thing here. Tanner's one of those guys who knows that he's close to that level, whereas Zac isn't. So, keep that in mind as well. And I do want to point something out about Zac Kelley as well. He's fought a lot of good competitors. He's actually had a lot of boxing fights as well. That's pretty much what he's been doing over the last year and a bit. He actually had a boxing fight back in March, but he's fought Elijah Johns, who's Miles Johns' brother. Miles Johns, who's in the UFC fighter. He's fought Manny Monroe, who's a really talented regional fighter. He's fought Mike Jackson, who's in the UFC. Fought Zach Freeman. I'm just looking at the list here. Some of the names that he's fought. It's pretty crazy.
Chance Rencounter.
Yeah, Kyle Bradley, who's a UFC vet, Matt Veach, who's a UFC vet. So you're seeing sort of a pattern here that he's fought, might not be the greatest record, but he's been in there with tough guys as well. So I'm also going to take Tanner in this fight. Again, he's just, a lot more complete of a fighter. But again, when you have an underdog who's stepping in on short notice, who doesn't have much to lose, doesn't care much about the record, that can be a dangerous combination. So just keep that in mind as well when you're looking at the main event of this fight. Let's get to the second fight that we're going to be talking about here on Showcase MMA. We have Joematic taking on Jesus of Villegas at bantamweight. Who are you liking in this fight? How do you look at this matchup?
This one's a little bit trickier because there's not much of a sample size, guys. He only has one fight as a pro, Joematic, and his opponent here, Jesus Villegas, has 0 pro fights. But they do have amateur experience, so we got to look at that. I think when there's no pro experience, you have to look at the amateur fights, right? And Maddox, he's a good submission grappler, James. Look at his record. Almost all his wins are by stoppage via submission. So, Villegas, I don't know a lot about him, but he has been submitted once. I hate doing MMA math, James, but when we don't have enough information to go on, I think that's the one piece of information we can go on, the fact that this guy's been submitted and Matic is a really good submission artist. So I'm thinking a submission here, James. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I like Joel in this fight as well. He actually went undefeated as an amateur, went 6-0, which is interesting. A lot of submission wins. There's a clear edge on the ground game. He won his pro debut at Showcase MMA 14, if you guys remember, first round submission in that one. And he's the hometown guy. He's fighting out of Greenville as well, so he'll have the, again, like just not having to do that long commute. That plays a role in it as well. Jesus Villegas as well. He's only got one loss in the amateur ranks, and that's to Brian Batista, who's actually a pretty talented guy out of Rufus Sport. Trains with guys like Sergio Pettis over there. So not a bad loss to have, but that was by submission, like you mentioned, Adam. So, while, Jesus does have submission wins himself, it's going to be a test of who has the better ground game. And based off the sample size we see, that is Joel. Joel's Matic is the guy that, you would think has a little bit of an edge there. So if you're going, who has the better ground game, I got to go with the guy who's actually got a pro win, who's been undefeated. I'll go Joematic in this fight to get it done in our co-main event. And then the other fight, I can't wait for this one. A lot of trash talk already. I just interviewed him maybe 30 minutes ago. Johnweeney, if you have heard that name before, Johnweeney's been in there with some of the toughest guys in the regional scene. He is a teammate as Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's looking to bounce back off 2 straight losses, taking on Calvin Harbaugh. Calvin Harbaugh is a guy that, if you followed Michigan MMA, has been a name around there for a while. 2-3 record. Obviously he's looking to bounce back a little bit here, but who do you like in this matchup?
I think Johnweeney, to me, was a guy that was pretty close to getting the UFC, James. He lost that fight to Cody Durden. Had he won that fight, he probably would be in the UFC right now. So this is a guy that's close. He's right there. And like you said, he trains in upstate karate with Stephen Thompson. I think that's a huge advantage here, being the hometown guy. And he has a lot of experience, James, against some good fighters, including Keith Lee, Kevin Lee's brother. He has a win over him. That's a solid win, man, with that promotion, 864 fighting championship. So that's a solid win. Calvin Harbaugh, I mean, again, you look at it, 2-3 record, James. He's coming off 2 straight losses. He's been stopped in those fights. Let's give the guy some credit. He's been fighting in pretty good promotions, LFA, CFFC, Lights Out Championship in Michigan. So good promotions, right? But again, 2-3 record. Can't trust the guy. Got to go with Johnweeney. I imagine he'll be a pretty decent sized favorite in this fight.
So Johnweeney, long layoff coming into this fight. That is one thing we got to point out here. That Durden loss was actually back in July of 2020. So he did fight, obviously, last year, but at the same time, that is kind of a long layoff coming into this one as well. He talked about the losses, what sort of happened there. The Durden fight, he said, sort of a mental lapse there. He said he had a tough weight cut. And then the Kara Kappa fight, who we saw in Contender Series, Phil Kara Kappa, it's a tongue twister. That was a fight as well where he was winning and he just ended up, kind of taking the foot off the gas there. So, obviously this is a guy that's had some adversity as well. Trains at a great camp. One of the things we talked about in that interview was some of the fighters he's gotten to train with. Chase Hooper's gone to that gym and trained a bit with him. He got to train a little bit with Ryan Hall, who's over there right now helping Stephen Wonderboy Thompson get ready for Gilbert Burns. So Johnweeney's coming from a good camp. He's also got Carl Reed, who is one of the best wrestling coaches in the game right now. Carl Reed was also on Contender Series, so keep that in mind as well. And interesting tidbit as well, I asked him about the 140-pound catch weight. That was sort of on John's end, and it's not because he didn't think he could make the weight. It said he was worried about having an opponent that might not be able to make the weight as well. So Calvin's typically a featherweight. It's one of those things where I think they just wanted to make sure the fight actually happened. So it's not a case of anyone having a bad weight cut. Sweeney says he can make 135. He's actually working with a new nutritionist right now. So I expect him to make the weight, and I don't think it'll be a huge advantage either way, because Sweeney 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Calvin Harbaugh 5'8", doesn't have his reach listed, but I'm assuming they're going to be about the same size. But I have to go Johnweeney here. You just look at the level of competition. Again, has a win over Keith Lee, lost to Cody Durden, but that Cody Durden, last time I checked, is in the UFC. He's only losing to really good guys, and even the guy he lost to in his first pro loss, that was a 7-4 guy. So I'm going to take Johnweeney to get it done here in a really important fight for him. But again, with Calvin, he's a guy that could really take advantage here and maybe pull off an upset. But I do like Johnweeney here if we're looking at this fight on paper. So there you go.
I'm with you on those 3, James. And last week we did okay. We got the one fight wrong. We'll make sure to mention that. Joshua Oxendine, he got upset by Randall Austin Jr., James. I don't know if you saw that one coming.
I did. Yeah, it was a heel hook, I believe, that submitted him, right?
Yeah, that's crazy, eh? So that guy, I think Randall is close to the UFC too, guys. Some of these guys are going to be in the UFC. Chandler Cole, maybe him. I think that they need to get some more notable wins, though. That's the problem. But it's not really Showcase's fault. They're signing guys with names. They're unfortunately pulling out of the fight in the week of. That's what's happening here, James. So hopefully they're able to get some guys some better competition for their last fight in Showcase before they make it to the big show.
And of course, we'll be back for Showcase's next card. We're always going to be doing these before every fight and giving you the interviews as well. Like I said, I interviewed Tanner, interviewed John. At the time I'm recording this, going to be talking to Calvin Harbaugh tomorrow. So keep your eyes peeled here on the YouTube channel. For James Lynch, that is Adam Martin. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit a like button on this video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Lots of content here on the video side. And make sure to watch this event on Spectation Sports. That's going to be streaming the event, Showcase MMA. There's no MMA, there's no UFC this weekend. So really great opportunity to watch the future of the sport here for Showcase MMA 19. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.